Hey everybody, and welcome to another Tausken review. Today we'll be taking a look at Cliff Empire, a city building and resource management game that unfortunately feels like a bit of a mixed bag. The basic premise is simple. A disaster happened and humans have moved into orbital stations, and you're now reclaiming the planet by settling new cities on cliffs. You'll begin by dropping a landing point to settle people into your new cities and building new work for them to do, like constructing new things through 3D printers, or building new drones, or producing tradable goods, or building tourism or other things, basically to flourish your islands to actually do things. The gameplay basically revolves around these three separate cliffs that you'll choose from and begin to settle. You're limited in space because each building takes up a certain amount of space, and they're very small to start out with. So you'll basically need to specialize each one to do certain things. You can then build bridges and ships that can take off and land, and the other ones to deliver goods between them, so that you basically kind of build this symbiotic relationship of islands that are connected doing things towards a greater purpose. It's a cool premise and a fun idea, but I feel like this game is basically about 50% or 60% done. There's lots of mechanics and tooltips that feel missing or miswrote, perhaps mistranslated, I'm not sure, but there's things that just don't make quite a lot of sense. For example, you can set up trading and then sell things out. However, trading is completely unprofitable because every good basically has almost the exact same price. 3, 4, or 5 credits, which makes it completely pointless. There's no reason to build a lot of these different goods and try and sell them because they don't generate any kind of a profit. The only thing that does generate profit is tourism. So you're basically flushed into building a tourist megacity to bring people in and try and make money through that because it's the only way to make money. And so it becomes this very dumb thing where it doesn't feel like half the game's mechanics actually do anything. There's tons of different buildings and structures that'll produce different goods or sell things or ship them off to space stations, but they feel completely pointless because there's no reason to actually build them. The UI is also like a complete clusterfuck of just so much going on at one time, and there's like somewhat of a tutorial that kind of drops you in, but it doesn't really teach what's going on, and so there's just all this nonsense. You've got all these buttons down here and things you're supposed to satisfy, which there's a bunch of very simple ones that make a lot of sense, right? Electricity, recreational services, putting out maintenance buildings to put out fires and things like that, putting in water so that people can actually drink. That's great stuff and it makes perfect sense. But there's all these other buttons that have all these different things down there that don't seem to really actually do anything or add anything. And that's part of the problem with this game is it feels like everything is basically half-baked or underdeveloped with all the different tooltips that don't really work or buildings that don't actually seem to point to anything. It just seems like this game was basically dropped at one point and then stuck out the door despite the fact that it clearly wasn't finished. It's also kind of cripplingly punishing. Like if you make the wrong mistake, which despite the fact that the game doesn't teach you anything, you basically just completely collapse and you have to start over from the beginning. I had to start over multiple times just to really grasp what was actually required and how many resources I had to actually build what I needed. It also hurts that this game is incredibly slow, even on the fastest pace. It just moves at a complete snail's pace. There's a couple unique ideas here, like you've got defense structures you can build to fend off attacks and things that kind of make it feel a bit like a tower defense, but these don't really add anything meaningful to the game, and especially when half the other game doesn't seem like it's actually developed at all, it kind of makes the whole thing pretty pointless. I also really wish that this game would have had an easier way to transfer and cooperate your cities. You have 3 independent, completely different cities that have their own resources, their own money, and everything, but the way to transfer things between each other with building the bridges or building the ships to transport things is super clunky. It doesn't feel like it's very well thought out or designed at all. I do have to commend the developers on the graphics though. They're pretty good looking for the most part. I do like the way that the structures look, and it's all very interesting to watch the different ships come down and do their thing. Overall, Cliff Empire is very much a half-baked, average, bland game. It has cool and interesting ideas, but it has some of the most flawed execution I've seen in a game in a long time. It just feels like I've mentioned before, the things are half-baked, especially when you see missing descriptions or tooltips that don't make sense or are missing details. It also hurts that the game doesn't have a proper tutorial despite the fact that it has like super clunky mechanics at the beginning. So Cliff Empire gets a 5 out of 10. It's kind of okay, like if you got it on like a $3 or $4 sale and you just want to fart around and deal with some of the bugs and clunkiness, you might have fun with it because it does have some okay, interesting, unique premise ideas, but all of that is surrounded by buggy, underdeveloped, and bland gameplay, and so it can be very boring. And that's why I'm giving this game a 5 out of 10. It's just not there yet.